Oh, thank you. Well, you know, Bob Heil's a tough act to follow. and it seems like I'm making a career of that. I was supposed to speak at the at Ozark Con, which is a QRP conference here this year before it was canceled. And apparently Bob Heil was their speaker last year. So I guess I'm making a career of following Bob Heil. But yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope I can, you know, all of you look like you're pretty experienced amateurs. And so I don't know if I've got, what I have here is, well, you know, you probably know a lot of it already, but I hope I can give you something here. So I'm going to try and share my screen here.
Oh, hang on, I might have to turn it off.
Oh,
you can, no, you can do it. Yeah, yeah.
No, it still says disabled.
Oh, sorry, I need to tick the button, sorry. Okay, over to you. Should be working now.
All right, so I call this having fun with CW. And you know, the reason for that is, for a long time, it really wasn't fun, right? If you're a certain age, like I am, you had to pass a test. And a lot of times that was definitely not fun. But now that you don't have to pass the test, I think a lot more people are giving it a try, and I hope that they have fun with it. So that's what this thing's all about. So here are some kids here. They're having fun. You can tell they're having fun. And I want ham radio operators all over to have just as much fun as these kids are having and that I have with ham radio. And of course, old guys have fun with ham radio too, or Morse code too. So the first question you might ask is, why CW? Well, you know, here in the US, we used to have a radio show that had they used to call it the Puzzler. And it was actually an auto maintenance type show. And they would ask these questions, and it was folkloric. They tried to get us a question that was folkloric, historic, and some other ick. But that's what CW is, right? I mean, it was our original mode. It's historic for sure, and it's a good reason. It's one good reason to get on CW. Gets through and no other modes will. Of course, you know, with all these digital modes, that's really not necessarily the case anymore. But it gets through when no other computer-aided modes will. Let's put it that way. CW is often the choice for portable operators. And, you know, I guess you guys do a lot of SOTA operation there. And if you're carrying QRP radios around, CW is a great mode for portable operation. Fewer lids on CW. You know, I don't know how it is there in Great Britain, but here in the US, 75 meters sometimes has a reputation for some operators being on there that are kind of rude. It's a lot harder to be rude on CW. Swearing on CW doesn't carry quite the same weight as it does on phone. And it's good for operators with poor hearing. You know, I know of some fellows that operate CW because they just can't hear sideband. And, you know, all you need to do is tune that tone to what you can hear, and you're good to go. You work more DX. I'm a big fan of 30 meters, for example. And that's a digital and CW band here in the US, no phone. And I work a lot of the expeditions on 30 meters. Score higher in contests. Usually you get more points for a CW contact than you do for a phone contact. And you know, that's great stuff too. ID beacons and repeaters send CW to identify themselves. And I know one kid here, and at least he was a kid when I first met him. He taught himself CW when he was like 10 or 11 because his parents had given him a scanner, and he would listen to these repeaters, and he wanted to know what the repeaters were saying in Morse code. So he actually taught himself Morse code. And now he's in his 20s. He's in his early 20s. And he's still a CW operator, and he's a great CW operator too. But I think the biggest reason is because it's fun, right? You know, if it's not fun, don't do it. That's what I say. We have a guy here I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is near Detroit. And we have a guy here in our club he's in his 50s, I think, but he just recently took up amateur radio. And he was saying the other day, he says, you know, I really don't like CW that much, but I'm going to learn it just for the heck of it. And I said, you know, if you don't have fun with it, why do it? And I don't know. He never gave me a good answer to that, but I think you should do it because it's fun. So there's just a ton of resources now available for people that want to learn Morse code. And these are all the ones that you see here. LearnCWOnline.net, great website. The G4FON CW trainer, he's done a great job with that program, and he's still supporting it. He's even adding some new features, I hear, here now that he's retired. K7QO code course. This is but the top two both use the Koch method for CW training. The K7QO course is totally different. If any of you have heard Chuck K7QO, you know he's kind of totally different. So, and he has a very unique method for teaching code. So I often tell people that haven't had good success with one of the first two to download the K7QO course and give that a try. There's a couple of clubs here that do online classes. You're going to hear from the Long Island CW Club here shortly. They're doing a great job. But the CW Ops is another club here that has been doing online classes for many years now. And they also do a great job. I've had friends who have taken their classes and now are on the air using CW. So not to steal the thunder from the Long Island CW Club, but the CW Ops have also been doing this for a long time, and they're worth checking out as well. Now, if none of those strike your fancy, you can download an app for your iPhone or Android phone. And again, there's just a ton of these things that are available for free. One of the ones that I've found out about recently that I didn't know about actually, from IZ2UUF, that's apparently a very popular download now. But Ham Morse, Codeman Morse, all these things are available and available for free, and will help you learn code if that's what you're looking to do. Tips for learning the code. ARRL has a great web page here, but the best advice I can give is start. You're never going to learn it if you don't start. You know, a lot of people like to talk about Morse code, right? And they never seem to get around to doing it. Well, you got to start it and do it if you're going to learn it. That's just the way it is. Learn the characters as sounds. You know, it's dits and das, not dots and dashes. And there are a couple courses out there that use a method that's just terrible in my opinion. And what they do is they try and call up a visual image of something to help you learn the characters. For example, one of these courses try to teach you the letter D, which is of course da, did, it. They say, well, think of the phrase dog did it. Well, to me, that's just terrible. And the reason for that is you might learn that character, but by the time you're ready to start getting faster and being more proficient, it's going to be awful hard to reprogram your brain not to call up that visual image. And doing that really slows you down. And so don't do that. don't use one of those methods. And you see it. You see there's a YouTube series that does this, and I just found out about another one today that that is using that kind of imagery to teach Morse code symbols. Practice during the day with everyday things. One guy told me that he would, as he was driving to work, he would spell out the license plates of cars in front of him in Morse code in his head. I think that was a wonderful thing to do. Practice sending. A lot of times people will tell you, don't worry about sending until you've learned to receive well. But I kind of have a different opinion about that. I think actually sending helps you learn to receive somehow. And I'm no psychologist, so that may be just my experience, but I think that works. I think getting a key and practicing sending along with learning to receive is a good one. Learn with a friend so you can send Morse code back and forth to one another. Join one of these CW clubs, and there's I talked about CWS, but there's FISTs, NAQCC, SKCC. All three of these I think are free now. I'm not sure about FISTs, but the other two are free, and it's just another way to get more involved with CW. The biggest thing, though, I think, is getting on the air. It shouldn't be too hard to actually learn the characters, right? If you think about it, there's between the letters and numbers, there's 36 sequences you have to memorize. And if you can get through that, then I think you want to get on the air, even if you're very slow. And the reason for that is I think getting on the air focuses you in a way that playing around with these apps and websites and all that just doesn't do, okay? And you don't have to be discouraged if you don't copy the other station 100%, right? I'm talking to you now. You're not hearing every single word I say necessarily, but you're understanding what I'm trying to tell you. And I think it's the same way in CW. You don't need to copy every single character to have a contact. So, don't be, this really frustrates me. I'll hear these guys say, I got to get up to 15 words a minute before I get on the air. No, like when I was a kid, we had the novice license here in the US. That was 5 words a minute. I learned at 5 words a minute. I got on the air. Pretty soon after that, I wasn't at 5 words a minute anymore. I was at 10 words, then 12 words, and enough to pass the 13 word per minute general class test. It's just getting on the air will really make you a better operator, improve your CW skills. And, and it's only makes sense, right? The more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And the other thing then I say is, what's the goal of learning CW in the first place? It's making contacts with other amateur radio operators. So you got to get on the air. We'll come back to this thought a little bit later. So choosing a key. So these are the 3 basic types of keys, right? The straight key, hand key, and then the one in the middle is the bug or semi-automatic key. And then on the right is the paddle. Paddle you have to use with a keyer, remember, right? The keyer that you close the switch contacts, and the keyer makes the dots and the dashes for you. What I always say, and this is a little bit controversial, is that people that are learning CW should learn with a paddle, not a straight key. And the reason I say that, it's tempting to start out with a straight key because that's the simplest way to go. And theirs are generally the least expensive keys. But starting with a paddle and keyer really is better. Takes a little bit more practice to master, but you'll send better code right off the bat because the keyer is making the dits and the das for you. And not only that, sending is much easier on your arm, right? I mean, if you think about it, when you're using a straight key, you're quote unquote pounding brass, right? That's what we say, we're pounding brass. And, people tell me, well, if you do it right, it's not that hard on your arm. Well, how many people really know how to do it right, especially when they're just starting out? They don't. So you're eventually gonna your arm is eventually gonna start hurting. Whereas if you're using a bug or a paddle, your arm is just laying on the desk, and the only thing you're moving is your fingers. So you're not pounding brass. You're not putting your arm through that stress. And I think what this means is that you'll be able to stick with it longer, and not only have more fun with it, but you'll get more practice as you go along, and that'll help you become a better operator. So think about that, getting that paddle. Don't, you want to do straight keys later, hey, fine, go for it. But if you're just starting out, go for a paddle. Key vendors. So that, there's probably more key vendors now than back when we had the code test. It's really kind of amazing. And every time I turn around, I seem to find out about another one. I'm a big Bengali fan. I have a couple of Bengalis and I love them. Vibroplex, certainly been around forever. They sell the bencher keys now. N3ZN makes really nice keys. Kent used to be English. Now I guess they're made in Germany. I have a Kent key too, and you can't break that key. I mean, it's just made so well. I sometimes call my Kent the beater key because I'll take it to operate portable, like on field day. And if I drop it or if I get scratched, it doesn't matter to me. It's not going to get damaged. It might get a little marked up, but it's not going to damage it, and still sends really good code. And then for portable operators, at least here in the U.S., there's this American Morse equipment. I know this slide is a little American-centric, but that's kind of what I know. Maybe if some of you guys know some other European manufacturers, you can tell me and I can add to the slide at some point. Making contact basics, how to make a basic contact. The first thing you want to do is call CQ, right? So this is how you do it. You send CQ 3 times, send your call sign 3 times. Maybe repeat that 3 times. That sometimes you hear that referred to as 3 by 3, right? 3 by 3 by 3, actually. I do this a little differently, but everybody's got a different style. If you hear someone calling CQ and you want to reply to them, you send their call sign a couple of times, then your call sign a couple of times. I don't know what it is, but I think it's because a lot of people are just starting to operate contests or DX and not do like normal Morse code contacts. But a lot of times nowadays, I have people replying to my CQs by simply sending their call sign to me. And this is not in a DX or a contest contact. And I hate that in the first place because it's really not the proper procedure. And so I'll always make them send it again. I'll always either send a question mark or say again, AGN, and get them to follow the proper procedure. And why do you want to do that? Well, A, if they just send their call sign, I don't know if they're really calling me or not. I sort of presume so because they're calling on my frequency, and they started sending after I quit sending, but I don't know that for sure. And even if they're a strong station, if they only send their call sign once, I may not be sure I copied it right. Again, in a contest or in a DX situation, the other station is going to repeat that call sign, and there's a protocol for making sure the 2 call signs are correct. But when you're just making normal contacts, the protocol really is to send the call sign several times just to make sure that both sides have copied the call signs correctly. And then a first exchange. The first exchange, you usually exchange a signal report, names, and a location. sometimes when I'm working a DX station, I'll leave off the QTH until the second transmission. And sometimes too, if the signals are weak, I'll do that just to get the report back and forth before the band may change or something. When you're making contacts, CW operators use a lot of abbreviations. And what's the reason for that? Well, it enables us to send more information in a shorter period of time. Sometimes the abbreviations can be confusing. There's no standard for abbreviations like there is for Q signals. But in some, like thanks, for example, we'll have 2 or even 3 different abbreviations, right? TNX, TKS, and TU. I even left that off here. So there's actually 3 different abbreviations for thanks. So that can be a little bit confusing, but it's always good to use abbreviations. And this web page here has a whole list of commonly used abbreviations. Q signals. So I mentioned Q signals. We use them all the time. Take place of entire phrases, not words. The nice thing about Q signals is even if the other operator doesn't speak your language, you can still affect a basic contact by using Q signals. And QTH Ann Arbor, Michigan means my location is in Ann Arbor, Michigan, no matter what language the other fellow is speaking. And when followed by a question mark, it turns into a question. So instead of my location is, QTH question mark means what is your location? And there's a whole bunch of Q signals at this Wikipedia page. This actually is kind of interesting. If you look at all the different Q signals, there's a ton of them, and we only really use maybe a dozen or so in amateur radio. But there used to be many used in aviation, and a lot of the Q signals are aviation related. There's a Q signal for what is your altitude and what is your estimated time of arrival and stuff like that. So it's interesting to read through the list of Q signals. Prosigns. So we also use prosigns. They're kind of similar to abbreviations, but usually call for the other operator to do something. After we've at the end of one of our end of a transmission, we'll sometimes send the prosign K. That's an invitation for the other operator to start sending. At the end of a contact, we'll send SK. That means it's kind of short for silent key. That means we're going to stop sending, go off the air. And there's several of those that you'll want to know about. And of course, when it sort of consists of 2 characters like this, AS or BK, we send it all without a space between the characters. So AS would be da-da-da-da-da, and that means wait. That means, who knows? If I send that, it may be because I dropped my pencil or something like that. I just wanted the guy to hold on for a second. And again, there's a nice list of prosigns here at this website here. But over and above the protocol, I think what makes it fun is to really make contact, not just exchange, signal reports, but, to actually talk with the other operator. Figure out what they're interested in and have an actual conversation. Some of the most prized contacts I have are with guys I've known for years now on the CW bands. A lot of them I've never talked to in person. I don't even know what their voice sounds like. But one fellow now lives down in Florida. I've had I don't know, probably close to 100 contacts with him over the years. There's another fellow in North Carolina I've started talking to quite a bit. He's a has a PhD in anthropology, actually. And we have some very interesting conversations about, anthropology using Morse code. Just it's that kind of thing. One suggestion would be to look up the operator on qrz.com after you've made contact with them. A lot of times the other operator will put different things he's interested in ham radio and other things. Some guy might be a big motorcycle rider. Another might be a fisherman. And if you're a fisherman, you can talk about fishing, that kind of thing. Another thing I like to do is when I contact someone who's living in an interesting place, I like to ask them about the history of their town name. So like if I'd contacted one of you folks, I'd say, well, so how did Denby Dale get its name? And I would learn something, and that's the whole thing. You'd learn something. And one of the most interesting ones actually was a contact I made with someone in Toadsuck, Arizona, or no, Arkansas, not Arizona. And that was kind of amusing to have him tell the story of their town name. So anyway, it just makes operating CW more fun. So the second most frequently asked question I get is, how do I get faster? The first, of course, is how do I learn CW? Second is how do I get faster? And as I said before, is get on the air. Getting on the air really is the best way to do it. Secondly, I'd say learn to copy in your head, okay? I've been a ham a long time, but I only got back on the air about 15, 16 years ago. And around that time, there was an article in QST about a guy and he wrote about how to learn to copy in your head. And I said, well, and what he said is true. He says, you're not going to get much faster than 20 words per minute if you have to write everything down, right? Because you can't write that fast. You can only write about the maximum of 20 words a minute. So I said to myself, well, he's right. I got to do this. And I just put down the pen and pencil and didn't copy at all on paper and, with pen and paper after that. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but it worked for me. And sure enough, as soon as I did that, I started getting faster. And, it kind of goes back to what I said before about not having to copy every character, right? You can, if you're going along and there's some QSB, you miss a few characters, well, don't let that throw you off. Just continue continue from where you can start copying again, and you can fill in the blanks. You can fill in the blanks. Don't let it throw you. Get on the air. That's another piece of information I have. CW Ops Academy. So I don't know what the Long Island CW Club offers, but the CW Academy is designed to get an operator, either teach them a code to begin with, or if they already know code, to increase their speed. And the goal in the CW Ops Academy is to get to 25 words per minute. And to do that, they have it's a 3-prong approach. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. And at the end of level 3, you're supposedly going to be at 25 words a minute. So that would be something to look into if you're wanting to get up to that speed. And you don't have to. And why? Because it's if you're having a lot of fun at 18 words a minute, that's fine. When I used to bicycle a lot, and I used to like to ride as fast as I could. I never was as fast as the animals in the bike club, but I used to like to ride as fast as I could. And the guys who were not so fast will always say, well, why do you want to ride so fast? And I said, because you can, right? Well, it's kind of like that way with CW too. Like, why would you want to go that fast? Well, it's because you can, right? And, once you get up over 20 words a minute, it becomes more like a real conversation. You know, by that point, you sort of mastered the abbreviations and the prosigns, and you're sending and receiving almost as fast as if you're having a conversation on phone. And I mean, it's just great. It's just a great thing. Get on the air. Did I say that before? Get on the air. Work contests. You know, contests are another one of those things where, you know, it helps you focus on the CW. And after you've worked them, you're going to be faster. You know, and not all contests are 30+ word per minute affairs. You know, like don't get on the you know, CQ worldwide contest, but instead, you know, I don't know what they have in Europe, but here in the US, we have things called state QSO parties. And those things are normally not that fast. And if you don't operate that fast, they don't blow you off the air. They'll slow down and work you. And I guarantee after you've gone through like a state QSO party operating at 15 words a minute, say, by the end of it, you're going to be operating at faster than 15 words a minute. And my final piece of advice, get on the air and have fun. You know, it's all about having fun. And I just hope that people have as much fun with it as I do, because to me, it's a real blast. You know, when I was a kid, you know, as a novice, that's basically all we could operate was CW. And, you know, we worked hard, and the idea was to get your general class, mainly because then you could operate phone. Well, I got my general class, I got a phone rig, I got on phone, I talked to a few guys. I said, well, what's the big deal? You know, and I went back to CW, and I've been a CW operator ever since. So, yeah, that's it. Get on the air and have fun. And that's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah,
Dan, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Sorry, you were talking about copying in your head.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of CW when I was first licensed, but I, like everybody, wrote it all down, used a straight key, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I used to lope along at 9 or 10 words a minute, which was quite fun, but I never, ever got to being able to do that copying in your head. How'd you do it?
You know, I hate to say this, but like I said, I just put down the paper and pencil and never did it again. But having said that, the one thing I skipped over, there is a program that purports to help you do that. And
Right.
I forget what that is off the top of my head. I should actually make it part of the presentation, but it's on my website, and I can find that for you if you like. If you send me an email, I'll point you in the right direction.
Sure, I'll ask Nick what your email is and send one over to you.
It's just my email is cwgeek@kb6nu.com.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Very interesting talk. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Russell. Who wants to put a question to Dan? Richard, RBG.
Yeah, good evening, Dan, and thanks very much indeed for an interesting talk. You might not agree with this, but you did mention contests.
Yeah.
And I think one way to speed up receiving, obviously not sending, is to take part in a contest using something like N1MM, using ESM, which I know doesn't help your sending technique, but it certainly gets you tuned in to taking in letters and numbers, and you can increase your speed, and it don't half increase your listening speed.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. I the first time somebody showed me N1MM, I said, this is beautiful. Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, because and why? Because again, you know, people say, well, you're not sending with N1MM, it's kind of cheating, but that's baloney. You still got to receive, and you still got to type the call signs in, and you got to type in the exchange. And no, I'm all for that.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you get a little bit of confidence, you can go and join the big guns, you know, and happily work at 30, 35 words a minute. And quite often you surprise yourself because you don't hear dots and dashes and dars and dits, you hear the musicality of 3 letters strung together or what have you, and it's a little bit like music then.
No, I'm with you all the way on that. And like I say, because the contests are such a, well, maybe I didn't say it, but the contests are, it's such a, it's a format, right? You know what the format's going to be, so it makes copying easier. So that means you will get faster. By the end of a contest, you will be faster.
And the other question you asked through your talk is what keys we use. I've got a Shure. It's a German.
Oh yeah, those are very nice too.
And they're very, very nice as well. I don't think they're as nice as the Bengali, but they're certainly a nice key. Yeah,
there's like I say, just a ton of people making keys now. You almost think that we still had a code test or something.
Yeah. What do you think about a single paddle?
Well, okay, that's a good question. So people ask me that, and I have one. I have a Vibro keyer, and I had a Kent single lever for a while. And I think it's a matter of personal preference. Like a lot of guys, we just talked about this on the CW Ops mailing list, and I was actually kind of surprised that a lot of those guys said, and these are good CW operators. To be in the CW Ops, you're supposedly have to have had several contacts at 25 words per minute with several of the CW Ops members. And that doesn't always happen, but so you're supposed to be pretty good. And a lot of those guys says they can't use the dual lever paddles for some reason. They just never got used to it or whatever. And so they use single lever paddles. And of course, the talk is, there you go. That's a real key, isn't it? There's a what am I trying to say here? Like the really high speed guys, the talk is that they mostly use single lever paddles because you get points off if you make a mistake, and it's easier to make a mistake with the dual lever paddles. So I think it's a matter of personal preference. You should try both and see what works for you. The problem I had with one that I still have my Vibro keyer single lever paddle, but I sold off the Kent because the Kent had a really narrow finger piece, and the finger piece on the Vibro keyer is just like on the Bug. It's got the one key and then the knob, so you have about this much space, and it's a much nicer feel if you ask me. So again, it gets down to personal preference.
Thanks very much indeed, Dan. Very, very interesting. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else with a question for Dan?
I will have in a minute when I've done this.
Right, we'll come back to you, David. Anyone else with a question for Dan? Yeah, go on, Tristan.
Good evening. Sorry I was late on parade there, Dan. I'll get a slap wrist for that from Mr. Chairman or Ian there. But anyway, from the gist of the talk, I'm very interested in CW, and it's a pleasure to listen to your talk this evening. And I learned a few things. I'm not a fast operator. I can do a few of the alphabet, and this key, which was given, well, I bought it in a local radio rally, and as you can see, it's been done with cloth material. Yeah. But I need to get it working, because when I tried it with my radio, with a piece of wire just there on that piece of where is it? Hold on. Where you put it in there to the radio, I couldn't get any joy. So maybe I need to put some sort of another cable or to be able to connect it into my radio. I don't know, but maybe you could advise me on that one, because I don't know.
Well, it depends where the contacts are made. Sometimes underneath the key there's a strap. Yeah. From one of the terminals to either the center part or the the other contacts. So you'll want to like maybe take it apart and see where the contacts are supposed to be made.
But you know, it's a nice key, and I'm going to keep it because it's a nice key, and you know, if I need to get in, if I need any help, I'll either get in contact with you or something to advise or ask one of my friends there. But sorry to keep everyone up. And oh yes, hello, yes, that's what. Yes, Gerald. Okay, thanks, buddy. Okay, thank you, Dan, for the talk, and I'm sorry to keep up everybody in the loop. Back to Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Rob, you've got your hand up.
I was just showing Tristan that is how they should be wired up. It's an 8 amp Mark II number 3 or something, and you can see where the wires are going in there, Tristan. That is how your key should be wired up.
Okay, that was not the way that I received the key. Okay, thank you for that. No problem. I'll take that on board. Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine, Tristan. And thank you, Rob. That's brilliant.
Thanks.
Right, anyone else with a question? Yeah, David, EVA.
Yeah, good evening, Dan. Thank you for a very, very interesting talk. Not being a CW man, I've been licensed 30 odd years. I've had 3 CW contacts, one of which is my only satellite contact.
Oh, there you go.
And it goes back to the point you made about a straight key and a paddle.
Yeah.
Remember RS14? You could send CW up to the satellite.
Okay.
And it would send your call sign back. And I tried for about 3 days and the numerous passes to get it to send me my call sign back to acknowledge that he'd actually received it.
Yeah.
And because my Morse was just after I'd taken the Morse test, and because the Morse was so bad, it couldn't receive it. So I waited another couple of days and plugged in a twin paddle and used the keyer on the FT757 that I had at the time.
Yeah.
First up, bang, straight in. Call sign straight back. That's the difference it makes between good, when you're learning, good CW and rubbish CW. It comes from a straight key. If you use a paddle, it just improves it no end.
Exactly my point. And it'll be less frustrating for a new user, right? It'll be less frustrating. And I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, instead of pounding with your arm, you're actually just rocking your wrist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you say, you can make mistakes with it, particularly when you're doing the grip one, where you press both.
So, you know, sometimes there's guys on the air, you can tell they're using straight keys because it's just the way the code comes out. And some of them I can't even understand because the dits and the dies all run together and it's just terrible.
Well, my call sign's I have to be very clear when I'm sending my call sign, because if I send the V and the A too quickly, people don't come back. Right. Just to think I'm saying, don't anybody else reply.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, David. Right, anyone else with a question for Dan? If you wave your hand and I don't see you, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Is that it? Right, lots of silent faces. Gerald?
Yeah, can I just come and say thanks to Dan for that. It was really interesting. I got my ticket way back in '63, and I learned the CW to pass the test, and of course it was written. I was sending from a text in front of me and writing down everything that came back and so on, as the test was. Took a little bit of getting used to, and I know I've had talks to Richard, who does a lot of CW. So he was on the radio class with me at that time, back in the 60s. So I've been talking to him since about this. And I'm getting the hang of it now, but I've been using one of these paddles, which you refer to. It's the MFJ one I've got. And it does get really easier on the arm. I can practice twice a day now without feeling uncomfortable. With the old pump handle took a lot more working on. I wondered if it might be an idea if we had some sort of neck frequency that we could just go on once a day or maybe twice a day to practice, because if you do a little bit every day, you get good at it. If you sort of drop it for a couple of weeks because you've other things on, then you're starting back at the beginning again. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I say get on the air. That's the big thing. And the net idea is great. That's doing it with friends, right? Some clubs do it on 10 meters. They'll have a 10-meter local net, and that works good. Another thing that I don't know how it is in Europe, but here in the U.S. there's a small part of the 40-meter band between like 7110 and 7125 that used to be part of the old novice band, and a lot of slower operators congregate there. So that's a good spot to try. But again, I don't know what it is in Europe.
Okay, thank you, Gerald, and thank you, Dan, for the reply. Anyone else? We've got a number of new people here tonight who've come along. Yeah, Charlie, M0XCV.
Right. Hiya. Thanks for welcoming in. I saw your advert on the FIST's website, so I appreciate the invite, and thanks for the presentation. What I'm struggling with slightly is moving on to the air. You made a good point on all of the slides about getting on the air. One problem I seem to have is on the apps, I can copy it 20 words a minute plus, and I'm doing really, really well. And as soon as I turn the radio on and try and get onto the air, it's like going to the doctors when you're sick. All your symptoms just disappear and I forget everything. How do you make it? Just feels like a massive leap. And even though it shouldn't be, it's just such a huge difference from doing the apps to jumping on the air. How would you suggest you make that leap?
Well, one thing you might try is just like listen a lot. Like, I don't know if you tried that, but listen for 2 or 3 days and then try it. Or if you have a friend, like I say, like if you live near me and we're in a 40-meter, like I like 40 meters a lot, or 30 meters. If we could make contact, I say, hey, look, let's you and I get on the air, and I'll help you through that first or second contact. So that's that's another way. If you know someone that, or like you mentioned FISTs, they used to have like, and I don't know how good they are at it anymore, but they used to have like a CW buddy kind of thing where you could ask to make a schedule with somebody. So that might be another way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, Charlie. FISTs, it's only about $10, £6 a year to join FISTs. They have allocated frequencies at certain times of the day, and you can go and talk to somebody, 5 words a minute if you want. But my tip would find a clear frequency, have a quick glass of scotch, and call CQ, and somebody will come back to you. And don't be worried. If all else fails, just flick the switch and walk away. Just try it. Call CQ and just go back. Even if you go back with your call sign and say, thanks, 59973TU, and you'll never look back.
Just playing QSO, should I?
Is that right, Dan?
I say that again. I didn't hear that.
I say, is that right? You'll never look back once you've done it.
Oh no, you really won't. You really won't.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to add, Dan, whilst we're talking about straight keys, when I first got involved in the hobby, a pal of mine was a great CW operator, and those days there was only the straight key, and he was absolutely superb. A good straight key operator, a good one. It's a joy to behold, isn't it?
Yeah, no, some of those guys are really good. I never got that good at it. And to tell you the truth, I think that hindered me for a while. But as soon as I got that paddle, it's like you can't pry it from my hands now.
Yeah.
But I have a terrible straight key fist. My straight key fist is, it's passable, but it's not that good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the other one with the paddle, some people use it just as a single paddle, or left and right and left, and then not everybody uses the iambic feature, do they?
And you don't have to. There's no reason to if you don't want to. Yeah. Everybody's got their own style.
Okay, thank you, Dan, and thank you again, Richard, for following on Charlie. And Charlie, I think the advice you've been given is absolutely right. Just give it a go one day. You know, Richard's the same as me. I probably go in and call CQ at something daft like 25 words a minute. If someone comes back to me much slower, I will drop my speed down to match that person's speed, whatever it is, because I know the chances are they are very new to CW and are wanting to learn just like I did many years ago. And it's about communicating, isn't it? And just doing it. And I think you'll find most CW ops, Dan, will do exactly what I've said, won't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know I will.
It normally takes me a few goes on SSB to get someone's call, so I never run on CW.
Well, and that's why I say that the protocol is to send your call sign several times, because you know, you never know who's on the other end. And even if they're a good CW operator, there might have been some QSB or QRM or something, and you got to send it 2 or 3 times just to make sure that they copy it right.
Sorry to ask another question.
No, go ahead.
When I've got myself, I was treated to a Kent twin paddle, and it's a beautiful piece of kit.
Yeah.
I can fire off CW at 30 words a minute, but I can't copy at that pace. How do you deal when you've got that large difference between your...
Well, don't first off, don't send that fast, because they're going to expect you to be able to copy it that fast.
Yeah.
So just send slowly. Set it for 12, 15 words a minute at first, and then work your way up. You know, but that's where having a sort of a CW friend is a good thing. Like there's one guy who I contact, and we know each other now, and whenever we contact with one another, we know we're going to crank it up as fast as we can. And if we make mistakes, who cares? You know, because we know the whole idea of the contact is to try and send as fast as we can. Because you know what happened? This is kind of funny too. I didn't mention this, but once you start getting above 30 words a minute, it's almost easier to receive than it is to send, because that manual dexterity, you know, especially if you're older like me, you know, you might not have the manual dexterity to send at 30, 35 words a minute, but you might be able to copy it just fine, because you're copying it in your head, and there's not as much hindrance. There's no physical hindrance to it. So anyway, we crank it up and we try and, you know, blow each other out of the water. but I don't know. So in your case though, you know, just send slow and get used to having slower conversations, and then take it from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. David, just before you come in, I've got a question that's been waiting some time. We've got Paul M0KKU down, who's texted a question. I've been learning Morse using the I2UUF app for a good few years. How do you overcome the problem of an error called dotting? This is where you cannot distinguish between a 5 and an H, for example. I'm learning at 25 words a minute. I've gone back to H after reaching the last letter in the hope of fixing the issue.
You know, that's a good question, and I don't know that I have a good answer for it, except that if you're copying that fast, the thing would be to look at the context, right? A lot of times in H will make sense where the 5 won't, and vice versa. So if you can, you know, that's where it gets to they talk about copying words in your head. They say, well, at some point you're supposed to copy words. I don't know that I've even ever gotten to that point, but I do know when I'm copying, if I copied something and then if I thought it was a 5, but that doesn't make sense, it should have been an H, I just sort of adjust that. And I think might be what you want to do, is to think, well, does that H make sense, or does the 5 make more sense? I hope that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Paul. Good answer, Dan. David.
Yeah, it's not really a question for Dan. It's more an observation for Charlie. I'm a new and poor CW operator, and I suffer from the same sort of fear of getting on and calling and that sort of thing. And what I found really useful is what Richard suggested, is going on to a contest go onto a contest, dial your filters in real tight, find somebody that's calling, and you can listen and you can hear the call sign. And if you only get 3 letters of it, just wait for him to call again. And that, because it'll only be 15 seconds, 10 seconds, then wait for him to call again and catch the serial number he gives that guy. So then when you give him your call sign, you know what he's going to come back with, and you know what serial number you're expecting to come back to you. So it's not cheating, but it's while you're at the stage that I'm at, it's upping your chances. And that was it. It's just a comment for Charlie rather than a question.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, that's actually a very good point. I like that advice a lot. I'm going to remember that if when I get to ask this question again. I'll give you a funny story about that. So, you know, like I said, I've been here a long time, but I only got back on about 15 years ago or so, and I was really rusty at that point. And it was around field day. It was around this time of year, right at field day, and I went to the field day site on early Sunday morning, and at that point, our club really wasn't that active. We weren't doing that much. There were 2 guys there. And one guy, they were having breakfast. So I sat down and had a little breakfast with them. And I said, well, the guy was complaining about band conditions. You know, that's a continual ham complaint. And I said, well, look, why don't we try CW? Even though I really hadn't made a CW contact for quite a while myself. He says, well, okay, let's try that. He says, I think we have a straight key around here somewhere. So he dug up the straight key out of somewhere, I don't know. And we did exactly that. We sat, him and me both, we sat there at the radio. We listened to somebody calling several times till we got their call in the exchange. And then we went back to them and we made the contact. And yeah, I mean, that was perfect. It worked out fine. We only made about a dozen contacts over the next 2 hours, but hey, we made contacts. So that's really a great bit of advice there, I think.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we've got any more questions for Dan. Bill, OA4 DVG. No. Yeah, Bill, you had your hand up.
I have a problem with me. Yeah. No, it's working?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hello. First of all, thank you very much for doing this kind of stuff. For us, the new CW learners is very, very important. I have like a problem because I listen, I decode easily when it's faster, you know. I've been learning at 20, 25, and at that speed, I hear the letters as a single entity, and I don't decode them dot, da, you know, like a single thing. But, and also while I'm learning, I'm with the paddles at the hand, you know, and I'm learning to send. But the problem is that letter by letter, it's easy. And in the programs, you can add some fun word there and separate the letters. But when I receive a bunch of letters all together, like more, even 2 long letters, I get totally lost, you know. Yeah. I understand all of them by themselves. 2 of them, maybe. 3, okay. I'm done. I lost it all.
Well, so here's what I think you need to do. So when I was a young kid, I took accordion lessons, right? And I would play along. If I made a mistake, then I was lost. It would like totally stop me. Well, the idea is not to let the mistake stop you, right? If you make mistakes, then just blow it off and continue on in the playing. It's the same with CW. If you miss a character, okay, you missed it. Start again. You know, understand what I'm saying? Yeah, don't freeze.
I freeze.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's the thing is freeze. If you freeze, okay, so fine. But if it's still playing to you, then just pick up where it's playing to you again. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know it's hard
to
let go.
Yeah. You just gotta let it go. It's like a lot of things in life, right? You just got to let them go.
yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Maybe I'll change my talk to, maybe I'll change the name of my talk to CW is like life.
Dan, don't you think when you're writing it down, that is the problem. If you miss a letter when you're writing it down, you're worried about getting it wrong. Once you get it in your head and you don't write, you don't bother about it the same because you don't see the mistake like you do trying to write it on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I think Terry was trying to get in, Nick, and he's not unmuted.
Okay.
Terry, VFC.
Yeah, sorry, Terry, didn't see it. Go on.
Yeah, that's okay. Just to comment, not on the CW, but one of the tips that Dan put up was to look up the station on QRZ. And I have to say that just listening on HF, and I don't do HF most of the time, but the other day I heard a station absolutely strong, just doing rubber stamp QSOs, and this was on 20 meters, and he was just so loud and such good quality, I couldn't hear the other side, so I looked him up on QRZ, and it was a club station in Zagreb, or at least one of the leading members in that club station, and the joy I had of reading the history of what they'd done in terms of getting stuff together and getting youngsters on the air and right from scratch. So QRZ doesn't half make life interesting if you bother to look them up at the time.
Oh yeah, I mean it's really a wonderful resource. I mean, really is. And I would suggest that if you don't have your information about you like that on there, think about putting it on there. You don't have to put like real personal stuff or even a lot of information, but just say some of your things you're interested in doing other than in ham radio and other than ham radio, and that's it.
Yes, and point taken, and I really should. I've never ever put anything onto mine.
Yeah, and Dan, that's the other bit of advice I think you gave earlier to Charlie, and that is if you're having a contact and you miss someone's name, you can go and find it in QRZ mostly, and you can check out, it's Dan, okay. You say, thanks, Dan, good QSO. Yeah. And you've done your QSO. I think it's, my grandson is just learning to walk, and he keeps stumbling and falling over, but he keeps getting up and carrying on again. And I think you've got to approach CW in the same way, haven't you, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about practice. You can give people tips and they can use programs, but it's all about practice.
Just one thing on QRZ, there's nothing worse than you're working somebody, he doesn't give you his name, and you look on QRZ and it says P.R. Smith.
Yeah.
You don't know what they call him.
Or sometimes they use their middle name. Sometimes they use their middle names instead of their first names.
KW7Y is a fine example of that.
I'll have to look them up.
Hey, Richard, M0RBG, they could be called Yekida.
No, I don't know how to do that in Morse, Tristan. Yekida.
Yekida, that's cheers in Welsh, Dan. That's something between me and Richard. Sorry, Richard.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much indeed, Dan. It's been a really entertaining evening. Can we first of all show our appreciation to Dan tonight in the normal way? Thumbs up, clapping, whatever it is you want to do. But thank you, Dan. Very enjoyable.
Thanks very much. It's always enjoyable for me too. Now I'm going to be listening for all of you on CW. I've written down all your calls.
Oh.
Thanks very much.
Before Dan, just two things. I have circulated round to people, but Dan writes a very interesting ham radio blog, which you'll find on KB6NU.com. So go and have a look at that. And you'll also find Dan, and we've had him on here as well, Martin Butler, on the ICQ podcast. So if you haven't yet had the joys of listening to the ICQ podcast, Dan's a regular contributor there as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's been a great evening with you.
My pleasure. And do you mind if I stick around and listen to M1ACV?
Steve, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, good.
Steve, I'm going to hand over to you just to say a few words, and then if you don't mind, just take a few. I'm sure our club members have got questions to put to you. But go on, over to you, Steve.
Oh, that makes me nervous, Nick. Yeah, cool. I only dropped in here just because you kindly send us the information about your meetings, so we publish those. But when I saw this yesterday, I only picked it up yesterday. I sent it around to our board members as well, so they could see the sort of things that you were doing, and they've been, very interested in what's going on. You seem to be extremely proactive with what you're doing with these calls. Dan, just quickly, while you're still there, I'm an avid reader of your blog, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for the mentions that you give to the RSGB in there. We do notice. So,
well, I think you guys are doing a lot of good stuff there, but better than the ARRL.
Could you just say that again, Dan? Sorry.
I believe some of your programs are better than the. Seriously,
Yeah.
I'm serious about that. Yeah, as you know, since you read my blog, I don't let the ARRL off the hook.
No. But at the ARRL, huge friends of ours, and we keep in contact with them a lot as well. So, but they've got a huge membership over in the States, and we'd love their membership numbers. We really would, but there we go.
Well, that's one thing I criticize them about is the membership.
But with membership numbers come problems, you see, or challenges. That's it. So, what do you want me to do, Nick? I'm quite happy to take questions, or I'll tell you some of the things that we're doing at the moment. Or how do you feel?
Yeah, tell us some of the things you're doing at the moment, and then we'll just open up to questions.
I'm going to say straight away that we have never seen this much interest in amateur radio, right? For many years. You've probably seen that we've been running a campaign called Get on the Air to Care with the NHS, and that has generated that, and probably the lockdown situation has generated so much interest in amateur radio. It's really difficult to quantify it for you, but the media campaign, and we sent out 100 press releases when the media campaign started, has generated a huge amount of interest, and it's rolled on to radio interviews, some TV interviews, and it just keeps carrying on. It's been absolutely wonderful, and it's brought so many people to amateur radio in the UK. If I can tell you, I think I can tell you that our RSGB membership at the moment is at the highest it's been since 2011. Right, so we've seen that happening. It's been fantastic. And we're doing online invigilated exams at the moment as well. I'm sure you've seen that. We had to pause exams when the lockdown started, but we've been running foundation exams over video calls like this, and remote invigilating them, and that's been hugely successful. I'm just looking for the numbers that we've had. So normally foundation exams every month, we'd probably see somewhere between 100, 150, something like that. When we started doing this in May, we had 309 exams. June, we've got 599, or there will be 600 by the time we finish the month. And we've already got over 550 booked for July as well. So if we just compare June to last year, 4 times as many foundation exams in June this year as we had last year. Right? It is just phenomenal. It really is. So there's that much interest in it. And yes, that equates to membership for the RSGB, but it equates more seriously to, or more importantly, I think, to more people coming into amateur radio. So my biggest appeal to everybody is look out for these new people that are joining, look after them, help keep them in amateur radio. So when you said you were having lots more people join your club, fantastic, right? These new people that are coming in will need the support of clubs and everybody on the air. We really need to look after them, encourage them, and keep them as radio amateurs. So that's how that sort of thing's going. You might have seen that we're running as well some every other week webinars on a Monday night. The next one coming up is all about antennas for small gardens. So Steve Nichols is doing that one on Monday the 29th. That will be on YouTube and on the BATC streaming as well, but you'll be able to watch it on YouTube or on our website. So lots of things going on. What else can I tell you? Why don't I just stop for a while and see what people want to ask me?
All right,
because I don't want to make it just an advert. You know, that's too much. But anyway,
right. Anyone open to the club here? Charlie, go on. You go first.
I've got a couple of questions, so I don't want to throw too many at you.
Or that'll be a warm-up one and a difficult one, then, will it?
The first one is from my other half who wants to take her intermediate.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when the intermediates are going to go online?
We have today just started calling the people who had their intermediate exams cancelled when lockdown started. So those are the ones we want to service first. Once we've done that, we'll probably do the same with full, and then we'll open it up to the to people booking new ones. So did she have an exam booked and it was cancelled or not?
She didn't. Unfortunately, she has terrible exam nerves. It took us several goes to get her through a foundation. So this has been an absolute godsend for her to go straight through intermediate. She's aiming to get her advanced as well. So she was over the moon. She heard that. The second question, if I can understand, is about children and in amateur radio. I've got 5 kids myself, all of which are quite interested. Firstly, we had a conversation locally for the Radcom. Have you ever thought about doing a pull-out children section? I'm sure most of the people here have got children or grandchildren. I'm sure you might have your kids yourself. To get more kids interested in amateur radio, have a little pull-out colouring or word search or some more youth-orientated. Very much like the Salvation Army used to do, a kind of little thing in their little magazine. And the other question is about packages for schools. Obviously, with 5 kids, I've been incredibly busy at home teaching all 5 of them. But all the schools up and down the country, everything's going online. Is this not the ideal opportunity for you to have like a pre-packaged foundation course that schools could purchase from the RSGB to teach their pupils, especially sort of secondary, to sort of help get a lot more younger people on the air?
Interesting. Which one should we? How should we approach that? So the pull out for Radcom, no, we've never thought about it. We do a Radcom Basics, but it's aimed at beginners rather than youngsters. You know, there's no skew towards youngsters. We've got a youth team, so it might be useful if you want to drop me an email. I'll certainly pass it on to the to Rob that runs the youth team. That sort of feedback and input is really useful, but I'll certainly if you send it to me, you can get my email address from the website, and I'll certainly pass it on to Rob who runs the youth team.
Who've got grandchildren, it'd be great when your Radcom drops through. It might give you peace to read your copy if you've got something to give the grandkids to have a little scribble on.
I get that. Yeah. Okay.
I'll email you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charlie. Right. Anyone else with a question for or points to put to Steve? Everyone's gone very quiet.
I'm quite happy for you to tell me what we should be doing, by the way. That's fine.
Jeff in Belgium, ON8NT.
Okay, Steve.
Turn the modulation down a bit.
Okay, is it too loud?
Yeah.
Is it better?
A little bit.
A little bit, okay. I will speak slowly. Thank you very much for this very good, for the very interesting talk this evening. And I'm a member of the Belgium Association. And one of the things I feel which is missing in national associations is the advocating of the right to an antenna. This is something which is, I know in the United States they make some legislative initiatives to do that, but in Belgium at least I'm not aware of anything in the UK who is working on the right to have an antenna and more precisely on the legislation to that. Do you have any clue to that?
Good luck with that one, Steve. Jeff, we really struggled with that. It was definitely only a readability 3, my guess is.
Very over-modulated.
Just the wrong time.
Too much compression.
Yeah.
Yeah, apologies, Jeff. We struggled with that, I think. Anyone else with a question for Steve? Yeah, Richard, what would you?
Good evening, Steve, and thanks for joining us. This will be of interest to Dan, I'm sure. I took part in the VE Day, special event call signs, last month. And interestingly, Dan, CW far outstripped any other mode. CW was top, digital I think was second, and single sideband was third. I know some of it is to do with the poor band conditions, but it just shows CW is alive and kicking.
Yeah, it definitely was top, wasn't it? I saw the same numbers. Yep. Yeah, very interesting.
Very interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we just need to get more people on more of the time, not just during contests and special events.
Yep.
Yeah, that might be useful for Charlie. If you took out one of the special event calls, Charlie, you'd really have a lot of interest in people calling you. You wouldn't have to make conversation if you didn't want. It would really get you into, working with a special event station.
Yeah. I think if everything's repeated 4 times, I'd copy it perfectly. Keep sending repeat, I'll probably get there.
You can do it on any of the modes, CW, sideband, or any of the digital ones. So, you can swap from one to another.
Okay, are you doing anything as a club for sort of on-air practice locally or anything like that?
Gerald, one for you, really.
In now, I took microphone out, so I didn't inadvertently get enthusiastic at one point. But seriously, yeah, it's quite interesting. And just when the novice system started, they did bring out a few little beginners books, which I've still got copies of here, and they were quite interesting. I was a school teacher at the time, and I used to pass them around the school for the kids to look at, and left them in the library there. So, it did develop quite an interest. About that, putting special event stations and so on. But I just wanted to mention that to you, Steve. It would be a good idea. The problem usually is finding somebody to write the articles to put in it.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah. Yes, it always is difficult. Something I was going to add that I forgot to mention earlier, about the National Radio Centre that we've got at Bletchley Park. I'm hoping you all know about that. We had, it's closed at the moment, of course, but last year we had 97,000 people through there, which was absolutely amazing for us. But one of the most popular things they do is they have some little, they call them snail Morse keys, just made with a cable tie and a drawing pin and a battery and a sounder. And they have some of the kids that come through can make those. And they absolutely love it. And a bit of sort of hands-on Morse code for visitors is really attractive. They absolutely love it. But kids really do relate to Morse code and being able to do something tactile,
Yeah, Steve, we did it last year, didn't we, Gerald? At the we do work with the West Yorkshire Scouts, and we went along and we spent a day with them, and we must have had a couple of hundred over a weekend. 250 scouts of all ages, boys and girls, came through, and we ran CW classes. So we taught them how to send their own name in Morse code and to decipher some Morse code as well. And when they'd done it, they got a certificate as well. So there were one or two that found it not at all interesting, but lots absolutely loved it. And we've been asked to go back by one of the scouting groups to do some more work with them. Obviously we can't at the moment because scouting's in the same position as everyone else. They've had to put it on hold over the last few months, but it's definitely somewhere that we can get involved.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Okay, anyone else question to Steve before we lose him? Yes, Terry, G3VFC.
Yeah, hello, Steve.
Hello, Terry. Nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise. I'll give you a phone call afterwards if I may. I've got a conversation to be had. Yeah, just picking up on one of the comments about school and a pull-out for youngsters. And I revisited the other day a book that started me off, which was Fun with Radio. And it was just a really how to make a radio using real bits that looked like a radio and sounded like a radio, And it was not just a crystal set, it was a one velver. I'm not suggesting that kids want to make one velvers, but it was the style, the drawings that said to me as a young person, a very young person, this is interesting, you could do this too. And maybe that sort of project thrown into the mix would be helpful. Fun with radio, look it up and take the style.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks. And there's lots of new things, sort of modern things. It could be Arduinos or Raspberry Pis or things like that that may bring, you know, the younger generation in. So we're constantly looking at that and thinking about that. In fact, our first webinar that we did nearly 2 weeks ago now was on the Raspberry Pi for that very purpose, because we thought it might, you know, attract those sort of people. So I think those simple things, whatever it may be, is a really good way to just grab people's attention and point them towards amateur radio. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, saw that webinar. Very, very good.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Yeah, I've got Tristan, and then Jeff's going to try again. Tristan.
Yeah, good evening, Steve.
Hello, Tristan. How you doing?
Nice to put a picture to the face after our conversation.
No, I've got a face for radio, Tristan.
Yeah. Anyway, just like to I'll just have the opportunity to thank you for all you've done to help me, and all the work that you do. From what I've known since I've become on the air, and you know, you're an asset to the RSGB, and you know, I'm trying to keep the things going. It's not easy, and you know, and I've certainly enjoyed being part of the amateur radio community and making friends on here, and as I'm sure that Mr. Chairman would allow me to say that I'm now a member of the Denbigh Amateur Radio Society. I couldn't ask for a better crowd because I used to belong to the local amateur radio club here, and I was only discriminated, which is, I'll be honest with you, and that's not a way to treat an individual who has learning difficulties and mental health. But I'm not going to give in. I'm going to do my next license, the intermediate, which is the next one. And if I have the backing of my friends and amateur radio colleagues and the RSGB, then I'll be happy. But I sincerely thank you and the RSGB for the kind support you've given to me when I ring up and need help. Thank you very much, Steve.
No problem, Tristan. No, our pleasure. And nice to put a face to the name as well.
Yes.
You said it must be difficult to keep things going. I have to say that all of the staff have been working from home, like most of the other people in the country.
And be bombarded with thousands and thousands of emails.
Well, there's been so many people coming into amateur radio.
Yes.
So we've been doing all this while everybody's working from home.
Yes.
So the RSGB people often don't realise there's 16 staff.
Yes.
But then 800 volunteers. So it spreads out really wide. But the staff are all working from home and working extremely hard because people are buying the training books and everything at the moment for the exams. So we're shipping things out as quick as we can.
Well,
it's been hard work, but it's actually been really rewarding to see all of the people coming into amateur radio. So it's been worth it.
Yes. Anyway, thank you very much, and thank you for your work. And it's back to Nick. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Tristan.
Thank you, Tristan. Jeff, go on, try again. See how your modulation is.
Okay, Nick, is that better? Is that better?
That works.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah, okay, good evening. And thank you very much again for a very interesting talk by Dan. I'm a member here of our national society, the UBA, you probably know. And one of the questions I have is, we are a small association. We have about 3,000 and a little bit more members here in Belgium. And one of the things I'm worried about is about the right to have an antenna. I see that it is very difficult to get an antenna onto your house or into your even into your property. And I saw in the United States that they have some kind of a right to the antenna, which is a legislative right, more or less, in some states at least. I'm just wondering if you in the UK are doing anything along these lines, or what's your opinion on that?
I think over the years it's become more difficult. I think people are much more aware of antennas, even if they're not amateur antennas. We've got a planning support committee with some very knowledgeable people in it who are actually part of the planning business. You know, they're professional planners, and so they will help members with planning permission. We've got some guidance on our website just to sort of help people start, but if people are members, then there's much more information there, and so they will help people through the planning process as best they can, but it can be difficult. You're absolutely right. Dan, do you know much about the planning in the US? So you could say what it's like there and what rights you have, because you will know more about it than me, I'm certain.
Yeah. So what we have here is a thing that's currently in place is a thing called PRB1, which it only is in effect. It only prevents local authorities from imposing restrictions. Okay, but if you buy a house with a homeowner's agreement, then you're still restricted because that's a private contract. So it doesn't restrict clauses in private contracts.
Yep.
There was some work on doing that, on restricting that clauses in private contracts, but that kind of got held up for a number of different reasons, which you can imagine. But so we haven't gotten to that point yet, but that's still in the book, still in the plans to try and get rid of those private restrictions as well.
So I think the combined answer is yes, it's difficult, or it can be in some areas. Yeah.
The more members you get, the more people you will have with that kind of problems, of course.
Yeah.
So if you get a lot of new members, I mean, the more members we will have to fight with that problem, in one way or another.
Yeah.
Well, the flip side of that is if your organization has more members, then theoretically anyway, they would have more political clout.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
That's why I'm always on the ARRL to do something to increase the membership.
Yeah. You're right.
And not so much on the planning side, but you've probably seen our campaign for about VDSL interference, and then supporting people complaining to Ofcom about VDSL interference, and that's been one of those campaigns that we wanted the membership to contribute to. So it's an example of that. Really.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Go for it, Charlie.
Again, go on.
They're not going to let you in.
I'm actually a good way amateurs can help with planning. I'm actually chair of the local planning and highways committee from a local parish. So sitting on the committee always helps amateurs to get through. However, on my last training course, the government were proposing automatic pre-approval for vertical developments. Have you heard of that? And it's obviously been on the back burner for Corona, but it was designed with the intention of making it easier to put 5G antennas up. And I had some very interesting discussions about how it affects the amateur radio community, because all collinears and anything going upwards wouldn't need planning permission. Have you heard of when that's going to be introduced, or if it's been shelved?
Not personally. I'm sure our planning support committee would have been aware of it. But again, if you're sending me an email, mention that as well, and I will happily pass that on and see what they know.
Thank you.
Yeah, just very quickly, as you've got Steve Nichols talking at the next webinar, the RSGB. We had Steve at our club a few weeks ago talking about HF propagation. But lots of our club members have read the book he wrote on stealth antennas. I mean, I'll just give you an example. I've got 4 antennas in my garden. I live in a house similar to the HOA agreements in America, a new build house where there's a contractual, you're not allowed by contract to attach any antenna on your house. I've got 4. I've got an 80-meter Wyndham. a 40-meter off centre fed dipole, a tri-band vertical, and a delta loop for 17 to 6. And
you're not going in, are you?
Contact around the world. None of those antennas are visible. Not one of them. So it can be done.
Excellent. Yep.
Steve's book is definitely worth reading.
Yeah, it is.
And going to his talk, the webinar the RSGB have got next Monday. Definitely worth going to.
Yep, please do.
Okay, before we close the meeting, have we got anyone got any final questions? Yeah, David, go on. Far away.
David's waving at me.
Hello, Steve, again. It's a long time since I saw you. 5
Hi,
years
David.
ago.
All right.
Before I left the trainers thing, G7LSFC, Derek, was working on Brickworks, which I believe has now been released.
Absolutely, yeah. Beyond Exams, it's called now.
At that time, I was also on the Denberdale committee.
Yeah.
At that point, Denberdale committee were interested in joining the scheme. So how did that scheme actually come out? What's been the outcome?
Excellent, because I'd forgotten to mention that. So Beyond Exams, it's called now. So there's 2 parts to it. There's a Beyond Exam club scheme and there's an individual scheme. So I would encourage Denberdale certainly to have a look at the club scheme and sign up for it. The details are on the website. Drop an email to the coordinator and they will be very happy to talk to you, or even your regional rep as well will be able to talk to you about Beyond Exams. So the regional team are behind that and supporting that and helping clubs get into it. But yeah, Beyond Exams. And the idea is once you've gone through the exams and you start on a sort of journey of learning amateur radio, don't you? And finding out what might interest you and trying new things. And the schemes are really there to help you do that and give you some achievements, some things to aim at to keep your interest up in amateur radio and keep you moving forward.
Can I just come in on that, please? Just to say, yes, I'll take it up on what you said, Steve, and we'll look into it straight away starting tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's excellent. It's proving very popular.
Great, Gerald. Thank you. Right.
Can I just have a quickie, Steve?
I've got Richard and Darren. Richard first. Go on.
Steve.
Okay. Which Richard? Sorry.
GCX.
Yeah, go on, Richard.
Steve, you know this Ofcom proposal for measuring exposure limits?
The EMF consultation, yeah.
That's right, yeah. I don't know how many, I replied to it, but it could cause problems in my opinion, because it could be a backdoor, like the IEE regs under health and safety regs. I don't know what you think to that.
Well, did you read our very comprehensive response that we gave to Ofcom for the consultation?
I haven't, no.
Okay. I would have a look through there because what we did is we put together a team of very experienced people to reply to the consultation, put out some guidance while they were working on it for other people to respond. Then our response has gone in, and then we encouraged other amateurs to respond to Ofcom as well. So there was our response plus anybody else that wanted to reply. But I really would encourage you to go and have a read of the consultation document. It's closed now, so everything's gone in. We were certainly copied quite a few people's responses. People didn't have to copy us, but they did. So we know that quite a few amateurs have responded as well as ourselves. But I would encourage you to go and have a look at the full response. It's all on our website as usual, but it is worth going to have a look at.
Yeah, okay. I was just a bit worried as well because, you know, when they ask for measurements before you start transmitting, if you've got a vertical in your garden, neighbours on the first floor, how on earth do you measure the exposure in their bedrooms on the first floor?
Yep.
Yeah, so it could be a problem actually.
Yep. Well, we put in the response that we thought it was disproportionate, really, to apply it to amateurs.
Yeah, I don't think it'll come in somehow.
But do have a look at the response because
I will do. Yeah,
there's quite some detail in there.
All right, thanks.
Can I ask a question, please, Steve?
Yeah, I can't see who that is. Richard, hi.
I fully understand during this last 3 months, you know, why there's been a ban on operating portable.
Yeah.
I do a lot of portable operation with WWFF, and like WAB, they're keeping all the logs closed until all 4 UK nations have got the same rules and regulations on travelling and what have you.
Yep.
Whilst the lockdown is being lifted in some areas, it looks like they never ever, the 4 nations are going to be in line. So, you know, what are the RSGB thoughts on starting to lift the, you know, the ban on logging and portable operation?
Well, the only thing that we said we wouldn't do, if I remember correctly, is we wouldn't accept contest logs from, you know, group organisations or portable operations. So you said a ban on portable operations for the other groups. That surely just must be them sort of supporting the government guidelines, is it?
Yeah, it's not so much a ban on portable operations. It's a ban on the logs being submitted, you know, to claim awards and things like that, just to prohibit people going out during the lockdown.
With us, that's only for our contests, I think. Are you a contester?
Yeah.
Okay. So there, yeah, we wanted to basically not encourage people to break the government guidelines. That was really what it was about.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Darren, BWB.
Yes, thank you. Just one observation I have about a lot of new amateurs that come into the hobby via the foundation that we then seem to lose very, very quickly. I call it the Bofang Brigade, and I don't mean that respectfully at all. They go out there and they spend 15 quid on a 2-meter radio, and then suddenly get disillusioned with the hobby because it's not giving them a good example of what it is, and they simply don't go on any further. I wonder if the RSGB have any idea. I have no idea whatsoever how to get around that, but I wonder if the RSGB have.
Well, the one thing I would definitely say is have a look at Beyond Exams, because that does give people a bit of a path and some interesting activities that should keep their interest. I really would suggest that. But I think when I said earlier, you know, you having more people joining the club or your club looking after these people or supporting them, I think all radio amateurs can help these people when they join first by being welcoming and, you know, basically looking after them, because it you know, sometimes that doesn't happen and it can easily put people off. So I think that yes, we need to look after people when they come in first. We try and do that with Radcom Basics if they're coming in new and they're you know, they want to see new things or have things explained from the beginning. Radcom Basics, we don't aim just at new licensees though. It's for people who want to try something different. And Beyond Exams is the same as that. So I think we've got a combination of things, and we're always looking at more things we could do. We really are. But I think we all as radio amateurs need to think about how we can encourage and support people when they come in, especially in clubs. Because at the moment, those people are starved. Apart from online like this, they're starved of club meetings and the usual support they might get. So as soon as we can, it would be great to get those new licensees working with clubs like yourself.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, hi Steve. Regarding the Beyond Exams things, it's a little harsh and unfair of David G0EVA to say Denbydale didn't want anything to do with it. I've just checked in the minute recording, and we did pass it on to one member who then stopped attending the committee meetings. So that's why we sort of...
To correct you, I wasn't saying you wanted nothing to do with it. The RSGB have developed it, and we haven't found out of it. I'll rephrase it. I haven't found out of it. It was I who introduced the idea. I wanted Denbydale Club to make a good stab at having a go, and the committee said yes.
Yeah, that's not what you said to the audience here. You said Denbydale.
Well, I apologise if I've misrepresented that. Then.
Okay, that's fine then, David. Thanks. That's underlined, Steve. But the comment was that my thought was amateur radio is an expensive hobby, but it's no more expensive than many other hobbies. Yeah, to pick up a 20 quid Bofang, you're going to get disillusioned. You're going to disappear. To get on HF is a reasonable amount of money. Would we not be better, or would the organisation not be better, focusing on people that have got disposable income, own a house, can put an antenna up in a garden, rather than looking at teenagers who are going to flip from one thing to another. But there's also the point with the teenagers, though, about planting the seed. And that's something that we do with the scouts. You know, and then they maybe disappear for 30 years and then come back. But I think there's a huge potential membership and potential amateurs of guys that are getting into the 40s, and instead of becoming another golf fan, you know, we can get them into amateur radio. Darren doesn't play golf very well anyway, so there's no use him holding his hands up.
Well,
we got focus on those as well.
You have picked up some really important points. You really have. One thing that I could have mentioned, and I didn't earlier, was as well as the people taking the exams, we've seen an awful lot of people coming back into amateur radio. We always did. Ofcom will let us take a copy of the call book page just to prove that somebody has had a license in the past, if they haven't got their exam certificates and things like that. So we've always done that, but we've seen 3 times that number since we've all been locked down, right? Really, every day we get a lot of people contact us, so they are coming back. And those people tend to come back because they've done amateur radio in the past, and they enjoyed it, but they stopped doing it for some reason. They probably, I don't know, got married, or they had children, or they had a mortgage, or their career started, and they come back to it again. So there is very definitely a trend for that to happen. But sowing the seed is also important as well, isn't it? Otherwise, those people will never come back later. So there is multiple markets here to be focused on. But it has been really interesting to see the vast increase in people coming back to amateur radio. So you are spot on with your age analysis of it. You absolutely are, and we see that in the profile of the membership as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go on, Darren. Yeah, dive in again.
Yeah, just one more thing. Following partly from what Davey said, yes, amateur radio is a relatively expensive hobby to get into, and we've had this argument many times, particularly with the young people. You know, people say, "Oh, you know, the young people, they can't afford £500-600 radio, but they all walk around with one of these, £1,000 iPad or iPod or whatever they are. So the money is there if they really want to."
Yeah, it's true. It's all one of the problems I think with amateur radio is it's one of many things people can do these days. If they're interested in technology, they can go to many different things, and trying to capture their interest is the biggest problem that we've got. Capture it and keep it. And we do what we can, but so that the clubs are doing the same thing. You said you've seen your membership increase since you've been doing online sessions like this. So you've broadened the reach and you've broadened the appeal. Have you had young members join, or have you got young members in the club?
We have got some young members in the club, not as many as we would like at all, but we have got some. Just an observation I'd make. One of the things we've been trying to do in our online meetings, Steve, is introduce people to things they've never done.
Yeah.
Because amateur radio is such a huge hobby and so diverse.
Yep.
You know, from people who just love, playing with circuit boards and fiddling with things and measuring things, through to people that love contesting and using their radio equipment and everything in between.
Yep.
So, one of the things we've been able to do with these online meetings is introduce people to satellite operations and CW and QRP and building their own antennas and, so many different things. And I think we've all enjoyed it. We had one of our early speakers was from the British Amateur Television Club. I can genuinely say in my 40 or 50 years in the hobby, I've never tried amateur television, but it was a fascinating meeting. And I think it prompted a few people to think, actually, I could have a fiddle with this, couldn't I? It could be quite interesting. So I think what we've got to try and do, which is what we've been doing in our online meetings, is just try and introduce everyone
Yep.
to be open-minded and say, actually, some of these things that I've never thought about and never tried would be interesting and fun to do.
And some of those topics, like amateur television and some of the digital compression techniques, or maybe microwave or whatever, some of those things are right at the cutting edge of developments in amateur radio at the moment. It's really interesting to see how things are developing, and the satellites, like QO100. So getting to see those extra parts of amateur radio, the ones that are sort of up and coming and becoming right at the cutting edge of technology, is really important. It's important for amateurs, but it's also important, I think, for the people outside amateur radio to see that amateur radio is still cutting edge and moving on and developing new things. So it's good for all of us. And of course, you manage to get on speakers from the States as well, don't you, when you're running these sort of sessions. So that would have been kind of difficult without video technology, wouldn't it?
Indeed, yeah. Charlie, go on. You're muted.
Right, sorry. Now I'm unmuted. I just thought I arranged a sked with somebody from Fists last week, and one thing, I don't know whether any of you are aware, because we're in a skip to each other, we couldn't quite work radio to radio, so we had to go at a Zoom meet to try to do a sked, and the filtering on Zoom is it'll be ICOM or Yaesu hands down. You get about 2 dits or a dar, and it filters it straight out. So we had to move over to something called Discord. I don't know whether anybody else has heard that. You're talking about technology.
Yeah.
Somebody's created a group called Morse Chord in Discord, but it allows you to do CW over that as well. So if you can't do radio to radio, but I was actually gobsmacked at how efficient the Zoom managed to filter CW side tones out. It's incredibly quick.
So the auto notch filter on Zoom is good then, is it?
very, very quick.
Yeah.
Steve,
okay. Yeah,
Steve, whilst we're talking about welcoming members to the club, I've often thought in RATCOM you have a list of new members.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always Mr. P. Smith, Mr. J.T. Williams.
Yeah.
Would it not be nice just to put, Mr. Peter Smith or, Mr. Dave Scott or what have you, and just make it a little bit more personal?
It depends on what they put on their membership application. That's the problem. But have you noticed that in the last 2 editions of RADCOM, I think it's been a full page. That's what I've been talking about, people coming back to amateur radio, people joining new and people coming back. Yeah, we've had to devote a full page now to those coming in, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
Those people joining amateur radio, right?
Okay, well, look, I'd like to call this all to an end really tonight. It's been a great meeting. We had two for the price of one. Great.
Oh, I just gate crashed. That's the
gate crashed the meeting.
your fault for sending me an invite. That was it.
But Dan, once again, thanks again for giving us an entertaining discussion. And hopefully, got a few more people in the club here interested in CW.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And Steve, thank you for gate crashing the meeting, and interesting to hear, and it's really delightful to see the new people coming into the hobby and people coming back to the hobby that gave it up 10, 15, 20 years ago and taking it up again. And, you're absolutely right. We've all got to find a way to build on that and try and develop the interests and encourage and get Charlie her first CW proper contact. We've got to do all those things, haven't we?
No pressure, Charlie, right?
Okay, well, look, I'm going to formally close the actual bit of the meeting. For those that haven't attended any of our